Good morning. It is morning here. Oops. You know what? I'm not switching it. Here we are. I had to fix the camera. That's just real life. It is morning here. I'm not sure what time of day it is for you, but it is morning here. I'm here to share my May reads. I want to share with you what I read in May. Now, I've said my first 3 months of this year, I didn't read very many books. I think I read 5, so it was really slow. And then in April, I read 8, so we definitely had picked up. And in May, I read 12. I don't think we're going to increase those numbers as we go, but I definitely picked up my reading. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I read. Some of them I'm only going to cover lightly because if you cover them more deeply, you lose the they build on each other, and I don't want to mess that up. So the first book was by Nancy Mehl, M-E-H-L, and it is entitled Firestorm. It's the second book in it's a particular series, Casey something, or Kaylee something, but I can't think of the exact series. But the first one in that series is Mind Games, and I talked about that in my April wrap-up, where she is the daughter of a serial killer, and she works for the FBI. Okay, so this second book, I don't want to get into too many details about this one, but it is entitled Firestorm. And I will say that she goes home to help with her mother. There's a lot of backstory there. And someone is setting fires. And the town does not think there's a pattern, but she, with her FBI training, sees a pattern. And therein starts a process that's really dangerous. And it, again, a lot of intensity, but Nancy does an excellent job of bringing faith in. It's really a good book. The second book that I read in May was called Dead End. Now, this is the last book in that series, and I'm not going to say really anything about this book because I don't want to give away things about the first 2 books. But I recommend it. It not only wraps up things with the first 2 books, it is, again, artfully done, strong suspense, and worth it. Then the third book that I read during the month of May is another Nancy Mehl, a different series. It's entitled Fatal Frost. It was okay. It was an earlier book of hers. You could tell a strong difference in her writing. It was really different by the time she got to this other series that I have talked about. But it was still very good, and I was interested in the characters. I became very interested in the characters. It took me with this story a little ways in before I truly was invested. So I would suggest if you choose to read it or listen to it, I listened, and I don't know how I would have felt had I read. I might have felt differently. I didn't like the narrator especially well, and so part of what I had to overcome was the narrator. But I feel like it did a good job of grabbing me and making me stop and try to say, what's going on here? Who's really the bad guy? I was struggling to sort that out for a little while. And, just a good suspense novel with a faith message. The fourth book for the month of May was a book I finished up, which I started. Oh, I think I started it in March, but I may have started it in April. I don't remember. But I finished it up in May, and that was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This book was a very difficult book, set in World War II, but with whispers of World War I. There were people in this book who had lived through World War I and were wounded from it, and then had to turn around and walk right back into World War II, and they were struggling with that. It is set in France during World War II, and you got to see what the French went through. They were not hit as hard as the Polish, but they were hit, and the occupation was tremendous. Once, initially it wasn't as bad because there were places in France that were not occupied, but they did cooperate with the Nazis. But then there were places in France that were occupied, and then eventually the whole thing was. And it was very difficult for the French. You saw, pardon me, sacrifices they had to make, how hungry they were, some of the more difficult decisions they ended up making that I don't think they ever overcame questioning those decisions. And then you saw, what it was like for people who were Jews, which was heart-wrenching. One of the things that we saw in it was what it looked like for them to take on children when their parents were interned in camps, what it was like to take on children. Sometimes those children were hidden. Sometimes those children ended up in camps themselves. There was a Freedom France or Free France movement that was written about, which I believe was actually a thing. And it was fascinating to see how the members of that group underground worked to help the Allies to work against the Nazis, and the extreme price they paid, which was huge. It was so huge. In the end, I would say that everyone there paid an extreme price. Everyone. I honestly, I don't, even some of the Nazis were paying an extremely high price. You could see that they were not all really initially wanting this to be what they were about, but then when pressure came on them, their choices narrowed quite a bit. It's a book, it has some very hard places in it. It's definitely an adult book with, I would say, war trauma in it. Very challenging from that perspective, but I would truly recommend it to every adult. I think understanding what the French went through is important, because their story, and for one thing, there were just the French and what they went through, but there were Jews that lived there. And so this book gives you a window into yet more people who suffered during that war, and it's important that we don't forget. The next read, there were a couple more Nancy Mel books, Dark Deception and Blind Betrayal. And I will not talk about them because they were after Fatal Frost, and I don't, these were just, you know, detectives and them working together, solving cases. And I don't want to say too much about them. I feel like it's best if you go into them and just see for yourself. But Nancy Mel does not disappoint, and so I feel you will enjoy them. A book that I read, it was a love-inspired book, and sometimes you don't really expect a whole lot from those, but I was not disappointed. I was surprised with this one. Jessica R. Patch, who is in the Christian world getting to be known more and more, she wrote a love-inspired book entitled Recovered Secrets. I'm going to tell you, I've read some different love-inspired books in my time, and I've never read one that caught my attention quite this much. This was truly a suspense book. You never knew what was going to happen next. This girl was rescued, and after the rescue, she had amnesia, did not know who she was at all, didn't know where she came from, nothing. So she built a life in this community, and all of a sudden, people start coming at her to kill her. She doesn't know why, and they're asking her for things. She doesn't know what they're talking about, and they don't believe her. And so the whole book, you literally are trying to figure out who the bad guys are, and you're trying to figure out if she's the bad guy, and she's trying to figure that out too. And you're trying to understand where the next direction is going to go, and she doesn't know. It was very well done, very well written, great suspense. There was a romance in it, and it was beautifully done. The right questions were being asked, and it was handled the right way. Initially there was no romance for her because she did not know if she was married, had children somewhere. She had no idea. So as things become more clear, you start seeing a picture that you did not expect when the book began. So really a good story. Really, I was truly surprised, pleasantly surprised by what a great job she did, and how a love-inspired book could just be so good. I was so surprised. The next book I read was by Kathy Golke, and that's how I'm saying her name. If you know how to say her name and it's not that, please tell me how she says her name. I have not seen it anywhere, but it's spelled Gohlke, and she's a new to me author, and the book I read was The Medallion. I would so recommend The Medallion to you. This book is set in Poland during World War II. And again, they were fully occupied by the Nazis. And so this book takes you through more in depth what the Jews went through. And it actually covers real people and their real stories. It was heart-wrenching. It was beautiful. At the end, I kept thinking, oh, I can't believe we're going to end like this. And I did not expect the ending that we got. And it just, honestly, it takes a season that is one of the most horrific in our history, and it weaves into all the pain, the grace, but it tells a story I had never heard before. Many have never heard before. I truly believe this is a book that needs to be purchased and passed out to people. We need to remember these stories because we never want to stop remembering what has happened when power and when the desire to control a race of people has become so great. You know, we want to keep a clear eye on these things. It's truly a powerful book. A powerful book. Powerful book. Christian fiction, historical fiction, very accurate, beautiful book. Beautiful book. The next one I read was Dark of Night by Colleen Coble. This one was another suspense, romantic suspense, but it is the second one in a series, and you do need to read them in order because they build on each other. I will say that a woman was kidnapped, and they're trying to find her, and a lot of details unfold as they do that. It was a good read. The next book I read is by Lisa Wingate, and it's entitled Shelterwood. And I read that one with my friend Beth. That was our buddy read for the month. And I can say that book was a beautiful book. It was set in Oklahoma, and it was focused on the Choctaw children and the Choctaw people and how they were treated in Oklahoma by those who came in, how they were tricked, the abuses. It had a story about, it was dual timeline, a modern day forest ranger and her story, and how she learns about these people and how things unfold, and how and the dangers that are going on in her timeline. And then it set back like in 1909, I think it is, with these children and how they have to escape a very dangerous situation, and just what they live through, and the ingenuity that they have to come up with, and how that turns out. And in both timelines, there's danger, suspense, a lot of education about what's really there and what's really going on. It's interesting because I don't think most people know a lot of this. This is all real history. She researched this and wrote the story framing the real history. And again, it's a people group. It is a book I recommend to people. History teaches us these lessons, and we need to hear them. We need to know. And so I cannot recommend it enough. It's a very good book. I was, again, very surprised by the way it ended. I kept looking for this one answer through the entire book, and my heart was just always up here going, when are we going to have this moment where this one answer shows up? And in the end, it was something completely different than what I had thought, and it was masterfully done. It was a good job. Good book. Shelterwood. I really, really recommend it. The next book I read was, the next two books I read were really lightweight books. Well, the next book was kind of a lightweight book, by Lynette Eason. It's entitled Final Approach. It was the last one in a series that I have read or listened to as she has put them out. I enjoyed it a lot. It was, it dealt with a family and their story, and what grief and greed and insecurity and loss will do to people. And I would have to read it again to tell you if I think perhaps mental health might have also played a part in this. But you could really have a good conversation about what caused these things to happen. And the character growth is good. It was a good book. These series that she puts out do not disappoint. They're good. They're also, for me, on days when I just really need an easy listen, They really help me through hard days. So I very much appreciate Lynette Eason as an author, because she puts out a book that helps me get through a hard day. And every one of her books does it. The last book I got through for the month, it was also by Lynette Eason, and it was entitled Collateral Damage. Now, I did not expect this book to go the directions that it went, okay? Very different from what I expected. This book is set around Afghanistan and the war in Afghanistan, and you discover some of the situations going on, the struggle that people had with operating in an area that had very strict religious rules and being able to manage those. And you got a really good view of PTSD of soldiers, what it was really like for them, not only there, but coming back. And something else that it eventually, I think, really came across in the book was how far will a person go for a loved one? What price will they pay for a loved one? And I'll tell you that sometimes, I would say both of the Lynette Eason books that I read really speak to that. Loneliness, loss, how far will a person go for these things? And it both really bring to light the importance of having a strong faith, really tending to your emotional and mental well-being, and your physical well-being, and being aware of potentially, like, know yourself, know how far you'll go. It's really an important point in all of it. I really enjoyed the books that I read during April and May both. This is for May, but I just filmed April's as well, so I'm thinking about it. But I really enjoyed especially some of the books that I read during May. I won't ever forget. I don't think I'll ever forget The Nightingale. I don't believe I'll ever forget Collateral Damage. I'm sure I won't ever forget Shelterwood. And The Medallion, I would say The Medallion is one that I will never forget. And all of these walked with me. They offered me something good, and they made my May more rich. So I really appreciate them. I appreciate all of the authors that I read. Only one of these was not a Christian fiction, and that was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. The rest were all Christian fiction. And truly, I was blessed to read each and every one of them. And so now I am in my June reading, and I will make an attempt to, I'm going to try to put out more videos, more of the books I'm reading, so that the videos are not so long, so that maybe I can focus a little bit more on more individual books. But I'm blessed to be able to walk with some of the books I'm walking with. I have a lot of books that I'm just reading, and it is taking time to get through them, but I'm definitely blessed. to be reading them. And so I will come back with notes and information. Some of these I think that are coming up, I think I'm going to need to do individual videos perhaps about, because some of them are really going to be rich and layered books to talk about. So we'll see how that works this month. Maybe I will actually achieve that. But thank you for joining me. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. Tell me what you're reading in the comments, and leave me an emoji if you have been here to visit. Hit the like. If you have not subscribed, please do. I would like to have more conversations. I would like to have more conversations with people about books, and one of the ways that happens is your participation. So I thank you for that, and I'll talk to you again soon.